Hi, this is Dr. Katrin from the Pet Behavior Chat podcast. I hired Adam because even though I knew I really wanted to start a podcast, I had no idea how to go about it and no idea how to launch a podcast. I purchased Adam's podcast launch blueprint course for myself and my entire podcast team, which includes a great step-by-step launch guide as well as 5 one-to-one coaching sessions with Adam. By working with Adam, we've been able to plan out and coordinate our podcast launch really easily and effectively. And 4 days after the launch of our podcast, it was ranked number 3 in our category on Apple Podcast. Thank you so much, Adam.
Hey there, Pod Pals. Do you feel like you could use a little bit of help with your podcast launch, growth, or with converting your podcast listeners into becoming your best clients? I want you to head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and watch the 4-minute video that talks about who I help and exactly how I can help them out. Next, I want you to click on the Discovery Call button to set up a free podcast profit potential discovery call where we can talk about working together to help you reach your podcasting and online business goals. Head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and get signed up for your free podcast profit potential discovery call. What's up, Pod Pals? It's your buddy Adam. You are listening to Podcasting Business School. It's a show where I teach podcasters how to love their podcast like a hobby and to build it like a business. If you are a coach, a consultant, a service provider that is looking to learn how to leverage your podcast to build your online business and get more clients, you're in the right spot. And I'm very excited because we are talking about a subject that I've never talked about on this podcast specifically. And I'm bringing a guest on the show. I don't think I've brought a guest on the show in almost 9 months, I would say. It's going to start happening more regularly and getting back to my 2/3 content rule. But I thought, who better to kick off my new round of having guests on the show once again than my good pod pal, Laurie-Ann Murabito from the Be in Demand podcast. She is a public speaking. She's like my go-to resource. She's my person. That show is my show that I listen to. I'm lucky enough to have her in my world. We're friends. She's a client of mine. We do a lot of collaboration. But as far as getting booked on the right stages and then what the heck do you do when you get booked on a stage and how do you optimize that? We've never talked about that before. So no pressure, Laurie-Ann, but I really hope you can deliver on this one.
Oh my good 9 months since you've had a guest. I am so honored.
Well, I thought of you. I was like, you know what, Laurie-Ann, I've dipped my toe in the waters of your content, and it's just like it's so good, and it's a natural fit. And this is an important thing because I love speaking on stages. I kind of lucked into it, and people ask me, well, how did you get booked at PodFest? I'm like, well, Chris saw me speak on another stage that some other person just recommended that I get on there. It's just kind of all this randomness. I know you have specific strategies, and a lot of podcasters realize the power of being on a stage. They just don't know how to get there. So I'm really glad you came on today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Where do you want to start?
Yeah. Let's just dive into a little bit about who you are and your background in the public speaking space. Like,
Okay.
Just a couple minutes on how you got started in this and why this is your focus point of your brand right now.
Okay. I am a reformed painfully shy girl who couldn't even make eye contact with people, who accidentally became a professional speaker. And I spoke in the leadership and corporate engagement industry. And I was doing really well. And at that point of my speaking career and also doing a lot of executive coaching, hopping on and off airplanes. And something happened in Fort Lauderdale that most people don't remember unless you're in the Fort Lauderdale airport. But somebody, you're allowed to travel with your rifle. He came out with his firearm and started shooting, killed, I think, 2 people. And it brought every plane around the globe to a screeching halt to the nearest airport. And I literally said, oh my God, I need a new business model. 2 weeks later, I get a text message from somebody who'd been in my audience and had won a coaching session with me on leadership. And she said, Laurie-Ann, do you write speeches for people? I was like, no, I just write my own. But because I knew her and I have a soft heart and I always like to help people, I met with her. She had like 3 years to go till she retired from her government job. And at that point, you'll stand on your head for 3 years to finish out your time. She'd had a she'd been running a side hustle that was going to become her retirement hustle for 5 years. She had been successfully losing money for 5 years. Husband said, "You can't keep doing this." So that's why she turned to me, and I was like, "Oh, Sharon, I can teach you how to get booked. I can teach you how to write a speech, and I'll teach you how to leverage it afterwards." After her first presentation to a small audience, she got referred to 2 other places to speak, and she walked away with 3 full-paying clients. That's a home run.
Yeah.
And it completely changed her business. And I was like, oh, I wonder if anybody else wants to know what I know. So that's how I came into the online world. And now I work with coaches and consultants, and I help them write and deliver amazing presentations to use as their best form of marketing.
What a crazy story. Isn't that, I mean, that's just wild that incident started a chain of reaction. You make,
Yes.
rethinking your business model and going, okay, something needs to change.
And it
It's
just
that's
shows
crazy.
up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
you lean into your zone of genius, and now you're in this space where obviously you're very passionate about it. You're a living, breathing example of this. You've got a lot of personal just experience with being successful with this methodology. Now you're teaching it to other people, which I love via a podcast.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about, from a podcasting perspective. Obviously, you're a podcaster. Like,
Mhm.
why should podcasters want to be booked on live stages? Like, what advantages do you see for podcasters that are out there building a brand?
Okay, let me share some numbers with the people who want some hard evidence. Just lean into and think about these statistics. There are 225,000 professional trade associations here in the US. 225,000. You know, when you go to the circus or you go to the fair and there's that person that blows up the balloons and then they twist and turn, and they turn them into animals? Yeah, there's an association for that. Okay. So there's an association for everything. And all of those associations also have statewide chapters, if not a couple in a particular state. So there's lots of opportunity. Somebody recently that I was talking to over on Threads said that she's from the real estate industry. And I shared with her, because I have a client who speaks in real estate. There's 134 associations under real estate. Now, that doesn't include property management and real estate investing. So 134. So
Wow.
there's so much opportunity that's out there. On an average day, globally, there are 20,000 speaking events that are happening. 20,000. Here in the US, that's about 7,500. So the US has almost half. Now, me speaking on your podcast and me having my own podcast and you having your own, like, this is not considered one of those 7,500.
Right. That's
So
crazy.
I believe speaking needs to be redefined and stages needs to be redefined. Find your stage, speak from there. But we're going to talk a little bit about that 225,000 associations, or the 7,500 opportunities that are literally in your back door that you just don't know are out there.
Yeah, this is where I feel like you are an invaluable resource, because that's, a lot of us, again, know, like, getting on a stage, it's a great thing. Great publicity. We pick up listeners. We can potentially pick up clients. And I've talked about that on the show before, but people are like, well, how the heck do you get on a stage? How do you find the stage, and how do you connect with the right people? So yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. How do we nail down like some target events or associations that we would ideally want to talk to, and how do we get our foot in the door?
So I always tell people, make a list of all the memberships, associations, groups that you're a part of that bring in speakers. Just make this long list of all of these places. Check off if they bring in speakers, and I want you to approach those people first. This is your warm market. If you belong to a Facebook group that maybe has like a weekly speaker come in, there's going to be a reason why you're in that Facebook group. There must be some similar people, potential clients that you could be helping that are in there. So approach them, just ask them, and here's exactly what you say, because it's not the, hey, hire me, book me right now. What you want to do is, and this is what I call it, we want to open the door to the conversation. We want to find out, hey, I've been a member here. I've been a a paying member, a group member here for the past 2 years, and I've noticed that we have monthly speakers. What's the process for bringing in or finding and booking speakers? So you're just asking for information, and they'll tell you. Oh, we have a committee. Oh, such and such is the person who's responsible for bringing all those speakers in. And that's when you share with them, like, I speak on, here's my expertise. I would love to be considered for one of those slots. It's very conversational. And if you've been a member of that group for so long, like, they already know you, they like you, they trust you, they're more apt to say, yes, let's book you. So start with your warm market first. Is one of the biggest ways for you to start getting like speaking assets and getting testimonials is start with your warm market. And then there's always like a process afterwards, after you're done speaking. And we can talk more about that.
Yeah, well, I love the fact that you're starting warm. We're building social proof. We are getting testimonials and not just leaving up to chance and luck, like kind of what I lucked into some speaking gigs. And then I started having people in the audience go, hey, can you speak at my event, or testimonials or referrals? Like that kind of starts a chain reaction. But so many people are like, where do I even start? So this makes sense. And I bet a lot of our listeners never thought like, ooh, Facebook group that I've been in for 5 years. That's a speaking engagement. That is, I mean, really, like you said, like redefining what is a stage, what is a speaking engagement. What does it matter whether it's in a Facebook group or on Zoom? Like I spoke to about 25, 30 people that were ideal listeners / clients for an hour and a half this morning inside of a mastermind on Zoom. I feel like that was a really good use of my time. So yeah, so let's kind of peel back off of this now. So we're speaking to a warm audience. What's the next logical step to take the conversation? Should we talk about moving into a referral based or colder audience? Or do you feel like we should talk about what we do in that initial talk to kind of spur on referrals and such?
Well, I want to give people another reason why they want to get on stages. And it's similar to like the story that you just shared. And everybody who is in your audience has already said yes to being in the room, whether it's in person or virtual. They said yes to spending time with you. They said yes to buying a ticket, to being in there. Like in your case, that was a mastermind this morning. Somebody has paid to be in that mastermind. So they said yes. And then they're spending time with you, even if they don't know who you are. They like the topic. They have the pain or the problem that you're going to speak about, and they are interested. So everybody who's in your audience who has said yes is a prospect or can refer you. So the prospect may not say yes quite yet. They may say yes down the road. So don't ever take it personal that nobody like the whole room didn't sign up. But there are people in the room, they're just going to be like, oh, I heard, oh, you need somebody to talk about podcasting? I was in this mastermind. This is exactly what's going to happen to you in a couple of months. I was in this mastermind and we brought somebody in. Let me go check my notes and I'll make the introduction. I'll tell you what his podcast is. And then all of a sudden you get an email that says, a friend of mine told me to listen to your podcast because he heard you speak. Can you come speak in our group? Yeah. So speaking easily snowballs real fast when you realize that everybody can refer you. Yeah. So,
I mean, you just described pretty much every instance of me getting booked to speak anywhere. I mean, every single time. And I mean, I've spoken on, if we are defining like a stage as a virtual stage, I've spoken on 6 virtual stages in the last 2 weeks. And talking to all sorts of people. Now you got my brain. Laurie-Ann, you know how dangerous it is to get my idea factory going. And I love to optimize and squeeze the juice out of every single opportunity. So let's maybe use like me speaking at a mastermind in front of 25 podcasters or potential podcasters this morning. How do we maximize that opportunity, should I look for testimonials from those people? Should I grab audio testimonials from those people? Like how do we max out this whole situation?
Yes, yes, and yes. So let's start with the person who brought you in. The person who brought you in, I want you to have a conversation with them, whether you have a post-event coffee chat with them just to find out, hey, how did that go? Would you write? That's when you can ask for, would you write me a testimonial? And of course, they're going to say yes. And then this is how it snowballs. Hey, who else do you know that has a group of people that would benefit from knowing what I shared with your mastermind? Can you introduce me to 2 people? That's it. And they will introduce you to 2 other people. And you repeat that every single time. I mean, you just spoke 6 times what you said this month. I mean, you're going to have to put a cap on things. You're going to say, sorry, I'm already booked for December and January, but I can fit you in March.
Yeah. It's like you're reading my mind over here, Laurie-Ann. I'm fascinated in this and where this is going and just the optimization. And so I feel like sometimes as entrepreneurs and as content creators, we kind of do like, I could very easily go, okay, I spoke to that mastermind, check the box, move to the next thing. Mm-hmm. And you're saying, let's pump our brakes and let's look for opportunities. Can we get the testimonial from the event organizer? Maybe I follow up and go, hey, I would love to do I know they have a newsletter. Let's do a newsletter promo swap. Like I'll promote in yours, you promote in mine. Now we're hitting our warm audiences again, kind of, getting that cross promo going. Yeah. I think there's a lot of opportunities here now that you got me thinking about it.
So how can we get testimonials from the audience? Well, if you had made a special landing page just for that event, everybody who comes through, even if it's to another lead magnet that you already have, but just so that you can tag them. So now you tag all of those people because I bet not everybody who's in that mastermind was there listening to you. They're probably going to watch the replay of you speaking. So they might also go to that landing page. And then you can at least, hey, what did you think? Do you have any questions after like watching it or learning from me? I'm happy to answer any of those questions. They submit a question. Hey, do you mind giving me a testimonial? And also, this is the kind of speaking that I do to share my message. Do you know any other groups that would benefit from hearing this? And so you're just constantly putting it out there. Like, this is what I do. I'm a speaker. And I speak in front of audiences and I'm passionate about podcasting and I want more people to know about it.
I love this. What a fan I am of testimonials and how much I leverage those. I instantly started thinking like, wow, I could probably get 5 or 10 audio testimonials and just do like a testimonial bomb on one of my episodes and just put it in the post roll and the outro. Like, hey, I've been speaking to a lot of masterminds. If you have a mastermind, you consider me as a speaker. Check out these testimonials and then drop 10 of them, like just bombard them with all that awesome.
They're going to love it.
That's an asset we can really leverage.
Yes. People will love that. And I also want to share that the reason why you keep getting booked and rebooked is a couple of things. You're really good on the stage and you are yourself. You bring your personality to the stage. You're not trying to be somebody else.
Yes. Let's talk about that a little bit, because the first time I spoke on stage, I was super nervous and I felt like I had to speak like people that I enjoyed listening to speak. Mm-hmm. But what you said, I figured that out pretty quick. About halfway through my first thing, I was like, these people look like they're falling asleep. Let's just wing it and be Adam and start being weird and quirky and loud and energetic and sweaty and running around the room. And then that started working. I'm like, okay, I have permission. So how do we get there? How do we kind of shed the preconceived thoughts of what we should be speaking like and just kind of create our own voice, if you want to call it that?
Well, I started doing this when I was doing executive and leadership coaching. I would ask them to come up with their leadership style. Because a lot of times what I found was, somebody was moving up the ranks, they're looking at somebody else up above. Well, if that's what got them there, that's how I'm going to get there. So I need to emulate that. And that's so far from the truth. I would tell them, like, let's find a speaking style for you. Well, in that case, a leadership style. So here, I want you to come up with a speaking style. What's your speaking style? 3 words or 3 phrases. And I talked a lot about this, I think, in episode 148 about your style. What's your style? And stick with it, because I want you to decide what kind of speaker you are, and I don't want the audience deciding what kind of speaker you are. So for myself, I want to be approachable and easy easy to work with, for the meeting planners. And I also want to be fun. So I'm down to earth. I tell some great stories. I didn't climb Mount Everest, but if you have like an interesting, I say that because a lot of people I don't have anything interesting about me. It was like, well, they'll say like, I didn't climb Mount Everest. I'm like, well, climbing Mount Everest is quite the accomplishment, but it's also something that most of the people in the audience never even dreamed of doing, and nor are they ever going to. But what's an everyday thing, an everyday story that you can abstract the lessons and share with the audience? Your thing is you wear your hat on backwards. Like if you didn't show up on stage without your hat, I'm sure people would be like, where's Adam? What happened to him?
So this year at PodFest, I'm contemplating showing up in a suit with no hat on, just to prove that point. That I literally have thought this. I'm like, I'm going to go stealth mode and not wear a hat and be in a suit. And no one will know who I am. Okay. Yeah. Like some of the goals when I walk on stage, I'm like, be authentic, be relatable, be high energy, let people plug into that energy and go, hey, I want some more of this. So let's plug into his world and his ecosystem. And you see me speak, on the show, virtual and on stage. And that's something that, man, I'm glad that I figured it out, because you are spot on with when you just be authentically you, then you can kind of develop into this super relatable, what I call a people's champion, that wow, they're not big, fancy, and famous, but wow, I really relate to that person. I've spoken on stages. I spoke on a stage earlier this year, right behind Michael Stelzner from Social Media Marketing World, who's got hundreds of millions of followers and downloads. And here's Adam next with 7 slides and a whole lot of energy. And I'm the guy standing in the hallway answering questions for 90 minutes after I'm done. And honestly, he wasn't. So
yeah.
You never know.
So being you, and I learned this the hard way. The very first time that I spoke, when I accidentally said yes, I turned into the college professor. I did. There was no beginning. I just went into teacher mode for 15, 20 minutes. And then I'll tell you, this is honest to God, the truth. This is how I ended my speech. Okay, now I'm done. And if you want to talk to me, I'll be in the back of the room.
Announcement. I am now done.
Remember, shy girl. I just wanted to get out and I was tired of having all these eyes on me, and it was a standing room only. There was a lot of people. And then I went over to the side, and people came over to me afterwards, were like, so do you work with clients? This was before my speaking and leadership. And I was just like, huh? I didn't even know that I could tell them that I worked with clients or what my website was. So I made a lot of mistakes to get to this point.
Okay. You are leading me right where I want this to go. Let's talk mistakes. We get on stage. Mm-hmm. What are some big things that you would like to see a newer or veteran speaker avoid once they get up there?
Don't be afraid of pausing. The empty space. Too many times what I see speakers do newer speakers do is 2 things. They try to jam everything that they know in 45 minutes. To an hour, like the entire time that they're allowed to speak. So what they end up doing is they speak really, really fast, and they're trying to get all of this information out. And all you're doing is really exhausting the audience, because they're on the edge of their seats and they're just overwhelmed. You have nothing to prove. You have nothing to prove. Get up there and give some really good value. You ask the question, you ask the audience a question. See, even I flip my words.
I do it a lot.
You ask the audience a question, and then you pause. Because what you're doing is, because neuroscience fan here, is the brain wants to answer the question. So give people space to answer. So pausing is very powerful. It doesn't mean that you don't know what you're going to say. It doesn't mean that you're nervous. So get up there, pause, speak, and change your tone. Speak fast when you need to speak fast, and speak slow when you need to speak slow. There's a reason why you speak fast and slow. It depends on what you want the audience to feel. Do you want to increase their heart rate? Do you want to slow down their heart rate and breathing? Do you want them to be on the edge of their seats? Do you want them to sit back a little bit? That's all with your speed of how you're speaking. So those
Yes.
are a couple of things that really, I always want my clients to look like a pro. I want them to look and feel like they have been speaking for 5 years and it's their very first time on stage. Make eye contact. So like a lot of this just sounds like, yeah, we've heard that. But in the speaking world, what we say is honor the cheap seats first. And that comes from, it's a theater thing. And you acknowledge the people that are in the back. You know, like if you go to the theater, the mezzanine, the seats that are way in the back, those are the cheaper seats than the people who bought tickets right next to the orchestra. So just recognize everybody who's in the room with you. And then bring your eyes forward and just keep, like having a conversation with one person here and one person there. And speak to one, not many. And what I mean by that is, Adam, you could get up there on stage and say, hey, how many of you have a podcast? Raise your hand versus raise your hand if you have a podcast. Like one is you're speaking to an ocean of people and the other is you're speaking to one person. So speak to one and not many. That will people will come up to you afterwards and like, I felt like you were talking to just me.
Yes. That's a great compliment. That's about the greatest compliment you can get. And the through line of what you just said there, Laurie-Ann, is like, let's be present. Let's be in the moment. Let's be mindful. We all know what happens when we get nervous and we aren't present. Here come the filler words. And it's like Will Ferrell in Old School when he does the debate and he like starts saying all these like really smart things. Then at the end, he's like, I blacked out for a second there. I'm not sure what I said. That's what a lot of people are like. My first time speaking at PodFest, I was real nervous. That was my second time on a stage, but first time at PodFest, I'm like, this is the Super Bowl of podcasting events. And I get up there feeling a lot of pressure. And my buddy Justin was sitting in the front row. He goes, I think you said like and about 4,000 times. And then my friend Allison Melody she's like, yeah, I got most of it on tape. We're going to do some review. We need to work on this a little bit. I was like, oh my God. But I delivered. I had energy. It's still, I got invited back. I'm going in January. It'll be 7 years in a row. So I didn't ruin it. So that's,
congrats.
We can take that to heart, but just being present and mindful and everything. And just, can you talk about just like preparing and practicing? Because last year at PodFest, I had multiple people go, Adam, I loved how you presented. You were very professional and I could tell that you prepared. And I'm not seeing a lot of that at this event. Like they were saying that people are up there just kind of like, I threw my PowerPoint together this morning and here we go. So let's talk preparation and being prepared to get on that stage.
Yes, please prepare. Another way that it's a new speaker is they go overtime too. And the more that you prepare, exactly how long your presentation is going to be. If you are being asked to speak for 45 minutes, please do not disrespect your audience and go 46, 47, 50. Don't do that. It is better to end a little bit earlier than it is to go overtime. You have to know what you're going to say. So here's a common question that I get is, should I memorize my speech? And I always tell people, like, if that's how you like to deliver a speech, then do that. But I will tell people there are two places that you need to memorize: your beginning and your end. The stuff in the middle, you can just have bullets. The reason why I tell people to memorize the beginning is because usually we've got like the butterflies. We're nervous. We're a little bit excited. We're not sure we're going to remember exactly what we're going to say. So if you memorize your beginning, the first like 5 or 6 minutes, it just calms the butterflies down. You will just know exactly what you're going to say. It's kind of like my intro when you asked me to introduce myself. Like I've said that so many times, so that it just flows. I never have to wonder, how should I introduce myself? It's the same thing when you're on stage. And then the other section is your close. I want you to know exactly how long that close is. Is it 6 minutes? Is it 7 minutes? That way you can look at a clock and know I have 7 minutes to go until my time ends, and my close is 5 minutes. I'll take one more short question, audience, and then you close. And you know exactly what you're going to say, because I always want you to be the last thing that the audience hears, not somebody's question from the audience, and you get your call to action in.
Yes. I want everybody to rewind like 60 seconds and listen to that again. The close, here's what happens to me, or here's what happened to me until I figured this out by trial and error. But this is before I knew Laurie-Ann. I'm up on stage. Things are going great, doing a little Q&A back and forth, clock's ticking down. And I start thinking, all right, I got to wrap this up. So I've got two parts of my brain working at the same time. I'm thinking in the back of my mind going, all right, let's come up with something catchy to say here at the end. And at the front, I'm trying to interact with the audience and say what I'm saying and connect. And it doesn't go well. And you end up doing what Laurie did at the end, like, all right, and I am now complete. Ta-da. Like you don't know what to say. So having that soft landing, and it could be that call to action. I've got what I call my implementation alarm strategy, where I tell people to get out their phone and set their alarm for 24 hours from right now and do something in alignment with what they learned today before that alarm goes off. And I tell a little joke about it. Like I always close on stage on that with that way. But just having some kind of a game plan. Otherwise, you could just go and ramble and it gets weird and we make it weird. So I love that tip.
And the audience knows that you're rambling. So don't ramble. Know exactly what you're going to say. Your job as a speaker is two things. One is to educate the audience and take the audience on an experience. You are taking them on a ride from beginning to end. And your other responsibility is to the person who booked you. Your job is to make them look like a rock star. So if the meeting planner, the conference host comes up to you and says, the person before you went 15 minutes over. I need you to take your 45 minutes and now you got to break it down to 30. Your answer is sure. Yes. Of course. And you don't talk faster. You take out a story. I teach my clients to build their speech in blocks. There's 7 blocks so that when that does happen, because it will happen, you can just, which block to take out. And it's so easy. And that way you can take a speech to use again and again and again, and you can use it in 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 60-minute slots that you're being asked to speak. So actually, smart. That's another point that I want to share with people is don't be afraid to have the same speech that you use again and again and again. Because what happens when you tell the same stories and the same speech again and again is that you get really good at delivering that speech. But that's always a big concern of people. So I always ask people, like, what's your favorite movie? Adam, what's yours?
Probably, I'm into like the guy shows. I like comedy. I like Step Brothers. We mentioned Will Ferrell. I love that movie, Step Brothers.
Yes. Okay. How many times have you seen Step Brothers?
Dozens. Every time it pops on TV, I always watch it with my son now, especially.
And you know the ending.
Yep.
But you still watch it.
Yep.
That's my reason why it's okay to tell the same stories again and again and use the same speech again and again. If there are people in your audience who have already heard you speak, like they're just like different information is going to land for them. And they're going to love hearing some of those same stories again and again because they also feel a connection to you. They know this story. They're going to be hitting the person next to them and say, pay attention at this point.
Yeah. I've seen that happen in the audience before. What about that person that kind of is very slide dependent when they speak? The person that has like the book on each slide and they kind of have to check it and read it. How do we get past that? I know you got strategies for this, so let's unpack that.
Yes, to have slides or not to have slides. So a large percentage of people that are in the audience, it's in the 80s, the low 80s, are actually visual learners. So having slides is a good thing. But you don't want people reading your slide while you're speaking. We want them paying attention to you. So less is better. Maybe a couple of bullet points. Maybe it's just a picture. A picture is worth 1,000 words. So for me, my slides are to help keep me on track. And when I see a particular picture, and it could be a pair of sneakers, I know exactly what story I'm telling when I see those sneakers. Yes. So Do not have a lot of words on your slides. Please, like, just do your audience a favor. They didn't come here to read during your 45-minute presentation. They came to hear you.
I wholeheartedly endorse this method. And it can be kind of scary at first, but you're like Laurie-Ann said, like you're going to get better and better and better. The more you do your presentation, the more you're kind of in the flow and the rhythm, you get your timing down. It's almost like a stand-up comedy routine. Like you're like, all right, here comes my little joke I'm going to tell. And I know how to time this thing. And we look forward to that. So yeah, it's like building a muscle. We gotta get there, but you can get there. Like I was the very slide dependent guy 7 years ago when I spoke at Podfest. And now I'm like, okay, I have 7 tips. I'll have 7 slides with 1 sentence with the tip on it. And then I reference an episode too. That's kind of my strategy, but very
that's
simple.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And I'm not turning around and reading it. I'm interacting with the audience.
No. If you have like certain information that's on a slide that you would actually have to turn around and read, here's what I would tell people to do is put a laptop in front of you. Read from that laptop so that you're always facing the audience. You never want to have your back to the audience.
Yeah. I love it when I get the little TV in front of me on the floor. Like it has those are those big professional organizations. Well, maybe that's probably a logical place to go next. I know my audience is thinking about, all right, Laurie-Ann, I'm getting booked to speak at live events or masterminds. At what point do we go, okay, now I'm charging for this? And like, how do we figure that out? It's a paid speaking gig versus I'm there to speak for free. How do we even make that decision? How do we figure that out?
Okay, first off, you're never speaking for free. You can speak for no fee, but you never speak for free because there's always an exchange of value. I tell all my clients to always have a speaker agreement, even if you're not getting paid. And here's why. Somebody actually was so surprised by this yesterday. Because in my speaker agreement, it'll say like your speaker fee is $4,500. You're giving them 100% discount. What do you think that meeting planner is thinking when they're like, oh my God, we're not giving him a check and he's normally charges $4,500? All of a sudden, like the respect for you goes up. They are going to value your time and your presentation all that much more. So that's one thing. How to figure out speaker fees. Well, unless this is something that you're doing professionally, you probably don't have a consistent speaker fee. And what I mean by that is it's not like you're not a professional speaker where this is how I earn my income. So if you can't pay me, I have to say no, but let's just say, Adam, you're getting super busy with speaking and you're like, I still have clients that I have to take care of. I have my masterminds that I have to take care of, a download growth club that I have to take, all these people. Like you might then have to say, well, my speaking fee is X, because it draws a line in the sand. If you want me, this is what it is. Otherwise I have to say no. So it's a nice way for you to like sort of only get the serious people to actually pay you to come and speak at their event. So that's one thing. The other thing is every conference has their own budget for speakers. So one of the things that I do, how I've gotten around this is in my appointment, like the application for that somebody wants to book me to come and speak to their group, the very last question is, what's your budget for speakers, plural? I want to find out what their budget is. They might have no budget. Well, what can I do in exchange of that? But maybe they do have a budget. So sometimes I will say like, hey, I'm already going to be there. I'm happy to do a breakout session. All of a sudden, they're very willing to pay a little bit more. And the other ways that I've done this is like I have 2 books on leadership. There's not just a speaker budget, but there's also a gift and education budget that conferences can pull from. So maybe they can't meet my speaker fee, but there are these other ways, these gifts that you could probably offer to the audience. You want to increase your value.
So smart. It's something that, in my experience, it kind of popped up organically where somebody just said, hey, we'd like to have you come and speak. And at first they were just like, we'll take care of all of your travel expenses. I'm like, well, hot damn, this is great. Let's go. And then like, and you also get a $1,500 speaker stipend. I'm like, well, even better. Dinner's on me. Let's go.
So, and that was probably like a fun bonus for you. You
Yeah,
probably weren't even expecting that.
I would have gone for free. I mean, I would have spoke for free and just done my thing. And because I know that I usually get clients when I speak, I get listeners, I build my audience.
Yes.
I'm always happy, like, you know, normally when you speak at an event, you're not gonna have to pay for a ticket. And I'm always happy to have that and the opportunity. If I get travel expenses taken care of, I'm like, oh my gosh, luxurious. Look how fancy I am over here. So yeah, there's different levels. So I feel like a lot of
Yes.
people maybe try to skip steps and they're like 10. And I think a lot of coaches are telling them to do this. Like you speak for 10K and that's the only thing that you do and blah, blah, blah. So any thoughts on that type of advice people are getting?
I speak for no fee all the time. Not everybody has a budget to bring me in, but guess what? I can get paid a lot more on the back end, like what you're just saying, with clients, with more bookings for other stages, for people just like signing up as clients, not just phone calls, and inquiries and downloads. But there's so much else that you can do. But the beauty of having a podcast also, because there's a lot of conference organizers that got burned by having a speaker who turned into an infomercial. And they will hear about it afterwards, the conference or the membership, for like a chamber or something. They'll hear about it. So a lot of times you will hear no self-promotion. You can't promote anything, any of your products. But I've never been criticized for, hey, go listen to this podcast episode. I
Yeah.
dive deep into this. And that's exactly what you did. It's like that's what your call to action is. Use your podcast as your best call to action. You are building that relationship with the audience after you step off the stage.
Yep. That's the way I love to roll. That's how I know there's a large part of our listener base that has seen me speak at an event like Podfest, and I'm just dropping tips and episodes to go deeper on the tip. And I'm the guy that's in their earbuds on the flight home, which is a place that I love to be.
Yes.
Okay. Last thing that I definitely think that we should touch on, well, I've got you here, is we mentioned all those associations and everything. And we talked about warm market and eventually, getting referrals and things like that. But what if it's like, it is that colder situation? We're like, wow, there's this event that I would love to speak at. I've been there a few times. How do I get my foot in the door on that stage when I don't have a warm connection yet?
Okay. You've been to the conference?
Yeah.
Okay. So the next time you go to the conference, you are going to specifically go and meet the meeting planners, the people that put that conference together, start building that relationship with them. That's one of the best ways. Do you know somebody who also was on the stage? Well, why don't you go and meet and start mingling with the speakers? Speakers need to know speakers, because that can be a fabulous form of referral for you also. For a speaker to walk up to a meeting planner afterwards and say, hey, I really enjoyed speaking here. Next year, when you're getting ready, let me know. I'm happy to introduce you to some speakers if you let me know what topics you're looking for. I tell them this all the time, and I will get asked, yeah, we'd love some names, because finding good speakers is hard. So.
Okay. I love that this is the direction that you took it. And everybody take note. Laurie-Ann did not say, just spam email all these people and that's going to work. No. When I was a health podcaster, there was a health event that I attended. There's about 5,000 people there. I'm like, I could crush it on this stage. Like, I'm different than these people, a lot of sciencey people, and I'm more like humorous and energetic. I'm like, I'll stand out. I need to get on the stage. I hunted down the event organizer just so I can get some FaceTime. Like,
Yes.
I've had a great time. I want you to come on my podcast. Oh, yes. So then she came on my show. I interviewed a ton of the other speakers on my show. I made friends, everything that you're saying. I got my foot in the door. So now I told the event organizer, I'm like, hey, I'm definitely going to apply to speak next year. Would love to be on the stage. Every single speaker I interviewed, I'm like, hey, talk to Robin for me and put in a good word. And like, oh, yeah, man, you definitely got to be on the stage next year. And next year, not only was I on the stage, I spoke, I got to do a breakout room on podcasting at a health event. And then the next 3 years, I was the paid MC of the entire event.
That's awesome.
Um, that's a success story of what Laurie-Ann just mapped out for us and how, but so many people are like, well, I just only have time to cold email. If it's really an event that's worth it, go get boots on the ground and freaking network your
Yes.
butt off.
Speaking is a long game and a short game. But it's really, it's about the long game. I mean, like I was asking you about Podfest just last week. You told me how you got there. Well, guess what? Like I applied for 2025, didn't get in. Feelings are not hurt because now I've got my sights set on 2026. Again, it's a long game, but I go to conferences and I will meet them, meet the right people, meet some of the other speakers. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
beautiful, Adam. That just makes my heart sing.
Well, I think we both need to paint a picture, and we both do this with our show, of like real world stuff that actually works instead of it's a 5-minute strategy that I've made millions of dollars off of, where that's a bunch of BS. That might work for somebody that's got $1 million Facebook ad budget or something like that, but not people like you and I. Like, we're
Yeah.
real world people over
Yeah,
here having to figure
exactly.
things out. So that's why I love your show. This is why I love what you do. You've got a lot of just every time you drop knowledge, like you're in my download growth club, and I see you just drop a few public speaking nuggets every once in a while. I'm like, oh my God, so good. This is people don't realize the value they just got in that tip from another group member. But if you guys are not subscribed to Lori's podcast, you need to plug in. You got
Thank
to
you.
plug into Laurie-Ann's podcast. It's just so good. Now, speaking of your podcast, I can't let you escape without talking
Yes.
about what
We
we did, because
we need to talk about
yeah,
that.
you're in my download growth club and we're always experimenting. And one of the things I love about you as a client is you are willing to participate in my experiments. So I was talking about my quick and dirty rebrand strategy, where we flip flop the title extension and the main name of the show to get a keyword as the first word. You are like, I'm in. I'm going to do it. You did it right away, and then good things happen. So could you just
Yes.
2 minutes just describe that story real
Yes.
quick?
So my podcast name is Be in Demand. It always has been, and I don't want to change it because Be in Demand means something. When I came into Adam's world, he's talking about these title extensions. So I put the title extension with public speaking tips for blah, blah, blah. So the experiment was, let's flip that, make the title extension the beginning and then the colon Be in Demand. So it starts off with public speaking tips for. I got a 200% increase, 200% increase in my downloads in 7 days. I was like, this is a successful experiment, and it stayed so far. It has definitely stayed. That worked really, really well. And
Yeah.
that's just one of the tips that I've gotten from you.
Yeah. When you posted in there, I was like, oh my gosh, that's a successful experiment. Well done. Well done. So yeah,
Yes.
that's the power of the first word keyword. So I just wanted to take advantage of having you on to tell that story really quickly. Now let's get people connected to you, get them plugged into your world.
Mhm.
If they want to check out your show, like, maybe an episode they should start with. You already mentioned one episode. We'll definitely link that one up, but where should they start if they want to dive into your world a little bit?
According to your last episode, Adam, number 525, where you were talking about a new listener guide, well, I did that for your listeners. So you can go to speakandstandout.com/Adam, and there will be some definite episodes that you can download and start listening to, depending on where you are. If you're new to speaking, or if you're a little bit more advanced, or or somewhere in the middle, I would definitely go to speakandstandout.com/Adam for that guide. And my podcast is, all you got to do is search Be in Demand. It's very searchable.
Nice. And look at my implementation of my student here out there. Like, oh, Laurie-Ann, that's one of the things that I feel like this is why you're successful, is you aren't afraid to just go out and start implementing things and go, all right, let's just see how this works. And you do that really
Well,
well.
thank you. But it's also like, this is the speaker in me, that this is what you teach your audience. So why wouldn't I come in here and just duplicate what you've done so that your audience can see it done again and again and again?
Yes, indeed. All
It's
right,
something.
Pod Pals. This
Yes.
has been a good one. It feels good to get back into kind of my roots of an interview every once in a while here. And Laurie-Ann, I appreciate you coming on the show and being willing to be my first one back in the interview seat. For us, and it's been quite a while, and I hope that everybody listening just if you haven't thought about getting on a stage, or maybe you've been a little bit nervous about it, maybe you have and you feel like you haven't maximized the experience, plug into Laurie-Ann's world, plug into her podcast. She will set you straight. You will feel very confident as you become, that person that is in demand, an in-demand speaker, getting on stages and executing really, really well, maximizing each and every opportunity, because that is exactly what we should be looking to do every time we get on a virtual stage or a live stage. So plug into all things Laurie-Ann Murabito and the Be in Demand podcast. For those of you that have been listening for the entire episode, I appreciate you. I appreciate you staying with us. I appreciate you being a supporter of my show. And with that, I'm going to send you out into the world, wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. We'll see you next time. If you need a little bit of help with your podcast launch, growth, or monetization strategy, head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and get signed up for a free podcast profit potential discovery call. During this free 20-minute discovery call session, I'm going to analyze your podcasting brand and tell you where I think you're missing on an opportunity for profits. Next, I'm going to tell you exactly what I suggest that you do as your next step. If I've got an offer that would help you accelerate the process, we can discuss working together as well. So head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and click on the Discovery Call button to schedule your free Podcast Profit Potential Discovery Call.